Welcome to ASB Info Night. I'm so glad you're here. Scott, so glad you're here, and our ASB Board of Directors are so glad you're here. Tonight, we are pretty much just going to be going over why ASB, why do you want to be a part of this organization, what do you get out of being part of this organization, and then we're going to learn about all 8 positions on the Board of Directors. So each Board of Director is going to come up and talk about their position for a little bit. And then at the end, we're going to talk about some requirements for those positions, because for a couple of them, there are certain requirements that you need to meet. And then in general, there's just some requirements as well. Dates and deadlines for you. So what's coming up before election season that you're going to need to do prior, what's coming up after, if you get the position, what the rest of your semester going to look like, and the rest of your future for the next year. And then at the end, we'll just ask a bunch of questions. So, yay, let's get into the next slide. Maybe. Oh, whoa, a little too far. Hold on. Okay, Scott, do you want to go over this one?
All right, so why run for the Board of Directors? So definitely one of the premier ways you can get involved in leadership on campus and develop leadership skills. It is one of the You have some of the largest responsibilities of any leadership role on campus, and so that gives you the opportunity to shoulder that responsibility and learn all the things that come with the responsibility of leadership. The activities are a thing that is one of the most visible parts of what the ASB Board of Directors does, because puts on awesome, huge, cool all-campus events, but there's a ton more to it than that. And in the mission of the Associate Student Body, that's a piece of it, but there are several other pieces. One of the most important is fostering a quality relationship with between the student body and between staff and faculty and administration. These guys, that's a large part of what they're doing, is they're advocating for you on a regular basis to Dr. Smith, who's the head of student development, Dr. Paul, President Brower. Nash meets with Dr. Brower every month, the Board of Trustees. So there's really no other student available leadership positions on campus that give you that much direct access to all of those top level, cabinet level, trustee level administrators. And the rest of us lowly, regular staff directors, which goes into networking opportunities. Like, you will get chances to interact with trustees, with alumni that are doing interesting things. So that's definitely a perk here. I would say, for gain practical professional experience, I think you guys can attest to this, having been in this. In some ways, this is like taking your first real big kid job. I mean, it's a part-time job to an extent, but with full-time responsibilities. Jenna runs student relations. That's like being a network coordinator or network manager for a large network firm that is managing a whole bunch of subgroups. She's got 60-something club presidents that she, to a degree, manages with her assistant. So that's a huge job. She has to have professional email, calendar skills, presentation skills. These are things she has to put to work. It's not let's learn how to do that. It's no, day one. I mean, obviously I'm doing my best to help prep her for those scenarios, but she's doing it as the professional on campus. She is the campus expert on clubs. She is in charge of that. So that goes for all the positions. I don't think, in my experience, there's no other leadership role on campus where you're really bringing that professional level to everything you're doing. Yeah, learn how to better engage with people who are different than you, for sure. You guys can attest. As a member of the Board of Directors, you are elected. It's not like Senate. It's not like being an RA. You are elected by the entire student body, which means you simultaneously represent every student on campus as best you can. And that puts you in an awesome position to get to hear from and learn from people who have different perspectives than you. And if you don't hear from people who have different perspectives from you, you will. They will make sure that you do. So, that's part of what it means to operate in a political environment. Politics is, we all have different things we want, and politics is where we come together to figure out how we're gonna do it together. And so I think that's something I would add to this. This is real political experience. Whether you want that or not, these roles are highly political. That's what they're doing all the time. They are trying to learn all the different things of what the different stakeholders want in any given decision they're trying to make, whether that's staff, faculty, students, the local community. They're trying to weigh all of those desires and come to some sort of agreement about how we can move forward best and compromise between all of those things. That's serious political work. And so I probably said the same thing in last year's info meeting. Do you guys remember that I mentioned something about how political it was? And did you take me seriously when I said that? And what's your experience been?
Just slightly.
Yeah.
Just a tad.
Yeah. And we kind of like hesitate or think pejoratively about that term politics, particularly because our national politics are so nasty and divided right now. But I would hope your guys' experience has been that's not how it has to be here. Politics can be about bringing people together, and that's not always the case. But you get an opportunity on this board to find out, to experience that, and to guide it. These guys have more influence on that than anyone else on campus. So I think that's fun. That's one of the many fun things that and there are. I mean, our weekly meetings, we get to break really good bread together and joke around a lot and sing birthday raps to each other. And just, I mean, it's a group that you work. I think of like RAs. RAs are like meeting together as a group once a week, and that's great, and they have like a cool camaraderie. But this is different. These guys are in offices. They're brushing past each other, going into subcommittee meetings with each other, doing different work groups, different things they're collaborating on. They're in and out of each other's lives and work constantly. And I think there's a level of fun that builds, and a different level of like team building that's maybe not anywhere else.
Yeah. Sweet. Also, I realized as Scott was talking, I didn't introduce Scott and who Scott is. So Scott is the director of community life. He's our advisor. So he's a really wise person. If you have any questions at all throughout this thing, he's a good person to go to.
That's where they hired me. Wisdom was number one. Benefits. So, I mean, we talked about a lot about what you're going to face, but yeah, I mean, you get a better chance to like do lasting things that can change this campus than probably any other students. And you can do that you get to do that in real time. Yeah, gain leadership experience. We talked about that. Every one of these positions gets its own office in the Commons. Have you guys all been up to the offices? Has anyone ever been to the offices? It's pretty cool. Offices. I actually noticed you guys have been in your offices like a lot since school started, and I wonder if there's is there like a cachet that when you do class from your office on Zoom that it's like, oh yeah, I took class, like they can see like, oh, he's in his office, not his dorm, but he's in his office.
I don't think so.
But there's like that also is part of like the professional level of what you're doing here. Like you can invite staff people to a meeting in your office. Your space. You also do get a small office budget to buy yourself a new swivel chair you like or a jacket. The compensation is similar to what it's actually tagged to what an RA gets, and so it's not a specific dollar amount. I mean, it is a specific dollar amount, but it changes based on whatever the RAs are getting paid based on changes in the cost of room and board. So it's not like an RA where they just don't have room and board charges and they just get a meal plan and they just get a room. You still, if you're living off campus, you would still get that full benefit. You can choose to have a meal plan if you want, but you don't have to. So it goes as a credit against your bill. But if you get a bigger meal plan or a smaller meal plan, you would then have the difference of that. Does that make sense? So it's more like a cash compensation that's just equal to that. Or I shouldn't say cash, it's like maybe more like a scholarship is how it works. They just apply that as a negative against your bill. Yeah.
I also think it's important to keep in mind, because I think you come in and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of money. That money is not necessarily guaranteed to you. You kind of have to work for your money. So at the end of the semester, you go under reviews with the Senate, and they decide how much of your compensation you're going to get. So you might do all this work, and you have to prove it to them at the end of the semester that you deserve that full compensation. So I think that's important to keep in mind, is you don't just get to hold a position and get all this money. You have to work for that as well.
So those of you who maybe had like a bad RA once and were like, man, they don't just give me a free room and board, like that would not happen for you. No. You didn't do much, you would lose. It has happened. This is not a threat. It has happened.
It has happened. Sweet. So we are going to go ahead and get into positions, which is probably the most exciting part. Each board of director has some fun photos from back in the day, and they have no idea what's coming for them. So sadly, Nash is not here to experience his beautiful photos, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about what he does, and then Scott, you can kind of cover me if I miss anything. So one of the most important things that I think he does is kind of chairing the weekly business meetings. He's kind of viewed as the leader in a sense, but does a really good job of making sure that everyone is kind of working together and that there's not one sole person. So he puts together our agendas each week and sends those out. Also make sure that everybody's voice gets put onto the agenda. He's also the liaison between students and staff and faculty. So like Scott was saying, he goes and meets with Bobby B once a month. He also meets with our board of trustees when they have their meetings. He's put on a lot of fun committees as the student voice. So if you like sitting in meetings, this is the position for you, which is number 3. He just
learned this week that he's on the traffic review, traffic infraction appeal review board.
Yes, so
super fun.
Lots of fun committees. 2 of those committees include NSO and commencement. So you get to help and plan NSO for those new students, and then also plan commencement for those graduating seniors. And then
Also lead the president. The president has more hours during the summer as well, because they will sit on the lead planning board. So they're the primary student, like the primary student voice into how lead gets developed is the president. And I think the agenda thing can't be overstated. Like controlling the agenda is controlling what ASB does. If Nash thinks something that people think are important isn't important, it's not going to get work done. He unilaterally gets to decide if something gets discussed or brought before the board or not. So I think that's important to know for someone considering that position, because it can be weighty, right? Like you might think something's unimportant, but maybe you think it is important to students, and you have to be able to make that call, or vice versa. You might think something's really important, the rest of your board doesn't, but you got to make that call if you're going to stand up for something. So that can, that's great, but that can be heavy.
Sweet. Pac-Man?
So my role sort of echoes Nash's role or the president's role, but instead of chairing board of director meetings, I chair the Senate meetings. That means I also set the agenda for Senate meetings. So in that sense, I get to control or have some influence over what Senate does. I hold Senate elections during the spring and fall. For those of you who are running for vice president, your first training will be to host spring elections. Since last semester during spring, it was virtual. I was just put in and had no hope, but that won't be the case. So I sort of ended up doing that all on my own, but
it's savage.
Who are running will have my help. I'm also the liaison between Senate and the board of directors, as well as staff here at Point Loma. So basically that means during meetings, if there's something important, I'd update the board of directors as well as update Senate of any important things that the board is working on. I also help senators get in contact with certain staff members in order to get their initiatives done. And another important thing here is obviously if the president so Nash is somehow temporarily or permanently incapacitated, I believe
just absent.
or just absent. I immediately step into his role. So yeah, that's a bit of what I do. It's really fun, and we get to have one-on-ones with Scott, which is really cool. Talking a lot about public policy and politics and all that. Which is it depends on who's in the meetings, but yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't talk about that.
Would you like us to talk more about public policy in our
I think we're good, yeah. So next is my position. I'm Emily. I'm the executive secretary. We'll skip to the third point. My big thing that I'm doing right now and that I do every year is run elections. So that includes BOD, which if you ever see that, that's short for Board of Directors, and then Senate. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing here. I'm the point person for this election season. I couldn't be more excited about it. And then some other things I do is I'm the liaison between students and alumni. So I work a lot with Kendall and Chelsea, who are in the alumni office. You know, the house right above Finch, that's where they're hosted. And we do some pretty cool, awesome things. I'm a part of a student alumni ambassador team that I meet with once every week, it depends on the week. And then we also plan Homecoming, Green for Gold, Tuition Freedom Day, all those fun events. So it's fun to be a part of that. I also am in charge of taking minutes at the board of directors meetings, so my fingers get really tired for 2 hours while all these people talk and I type. But it's really great, and I get to store them. So I also maintain the office and maintain all the records. So the whole ASB office, that's kind of my baby that I take care of. I put snacks in there. Yeah, treat you well. And then also just hold all the records. So any document, constitution, minutes, any election, any voting, it's all under my office. And then last but not least, the newest addition to my position is the ASB website. So on top of all of that, I also do the website with a website manager, which you will also get if you're in this position. And you get to hire that person, but we put together the whole website, and that has changed throughout the year, and it will continue to change. And so that's been super fun. Also, the fun thing about my position is it is the only position that you can run for if you are a freshman, sophomore, or junior. So that's a fun fact about my position. Okay, I don't know who's next.
You mean all of those classes can run for the position?
Yeah.
Also, nothing on the website.
You're aware.
The website is new. The idea with the website is Emily got handed an infant website that she had to raise to adolescenthood. And has done an amazing job doing that and raising that baby very fast through so many seasons, right? Like initially going through COVID, and then what does it look like in the summer to stay engaged on that? And then, okay, we are going to have not an in-person semester, so we got to pivot, trying to provide information and engage opportunities for students through that at that time, and then turning it into, okay, now we're back in person. But the idea on that is that by the end of this year, we would kind of have a set of this is what the website generally does and looks like, and those things are set up with all their hard work. And then from there, you're responsible for hiring and managing the website manager, but the website manager should be able to do most of the work on that. Emily's basically just done like 5 jobs.
lots of
But
it.
that would not be hopefully the case in the future.
Hadley?
I don't know who those two beautiful ladies are. My name is Hadley Albert. I'm the Director of Spiritual Life. My role is super cool because I am the liaison between students / ASB and spiritual development. So not only do I get to work with these lovely people, but I also get to work with the whole chapel planning team. Which leads me to my first point. I get to sit in super cool meetings and plan chapel. How many of you love chapel? I know, like half of you are lying, but I am working on making it really fun for all of you. On Thursday nights is our timeout service. That is more of a student-led, quote-unquote service. And so the ASB Spiritual Life Director gets to be someone that gets to pick or be a part of the process of picking students that will speak in timeout, and then also runs the timeout service. It's super fun. You don't have to be the most spiritual person on campus to do this position. I've grown a lot in my spiritual life and also just being a leader. And if you want to go into ministry specifically, this is a really good position that will help prep you for that. So run for it.
And then I just want to, this one's interesting. I mean, this is an awesome position, but it's worth pointing out this position's a little unique in a couple ways. One is, first off, really important to point out that somewhere along the way, 5 or 6 years ago, it sort of started to be seen as, or understood by students, that the Director of Spiritual Life is just completely in charge of timeout and all things at timeout. It's just really important to know that's not the case. It's not the case. Timeout has been a spiritual development program for a long time, since before I was a student. When the position was made about 15 years ago, that was part of it was a deeper invitation into more of a leadership role in planning that, and Hadley does do a great job with that. But it just can cause some confusion if you run for this position and think you're going to just be handed the keys of timeout. That's not really how it works. So it's important to note that. And then the other piece, that this position really works closely, directly with spiritual development. And on one hand, that's awesome because Hadley gets all these great people she gets to work directly with, have one-on-ones with, pour into, vice versa. But it's the one position that doesn't have the same level of autonomy as the rest of the positions that have sort of their own area that they're in charge of, and they don't have a boss, really. Like, the boss is the student body. And it's not that Hadley has a boss, but her programming is to a degree subject to like our doctrine and how the VP of Spiritual Development and that staff is interpreting that and wanting to execute that on campus. So there's some level of like more oversight for that. So still, I mean, it's an awesome position. I'm not saying that to discourage anyone. What the problem can be is if there's a misconception of what that is going into it, then you can be disappointed. I just don't want that to be the case. So. Fair?
Yes,
Fair. Okay, Jenna, I think you were next.
Hello?
You were the most mysterious woman on the internet, let me tell you.
No, seriously?
She does not have any good
That's
photos.
from like my high school stats.
I know. Huddle.
All my rebounds. Okay, anyway. My name's Jen Munz. I'm the Director of Student Relations. I feel like I'm probably like the most not known position on the board. Even clubs will sometimes don't know who I am. But yeah, I am the liaison between the ASB Board of Directors and all the clubs on campus. So right now we have 61 clubs, and that changes about every single week how many we have. And so I oversee all the club societies. So like usually you're part of the resource fair. This year looked different. We do club fairs. And you just help, if a student wants to get started with the club, you help them with that process. And then you guide them once they're out of that. And just kind of helping to get them. This year looks a lot like me trying to help them find locations because they have to be outside, helping them with budgeting. I work very closely with the Director of Finance. So if you guys get that role, you guys become homie G's because money is very involved in clubs. And then you're also the chair of the media board. So like that includes like Point Radio, Point Weekly, The Mariner, The Yearbook. I think those are the same things. And so you're not as heavily involved in that. You're just helping make sure that they have everything they need to succeed. And then just being like there to help out. But yeah, my job's probably the most like straightforward. I feel like a lot of other positions are like a choose your own journey type vibe. And mine's very much like emails and getting spent time with clubs, and you do like a very similar process. But so if you like that and organization is your thing, this is the role for you.
Thanks, Jenna. I think the next one's Caleb Christ, who is not here.
Finance.
Let me tell you, there's some gold on that internet.
Because he's so BA right here, like straight face flat middle, and then 4-H with a cap.
That's FFA.
Yeah, exactly. Is it FFA? It's not 4-H?
No,
I think
4-H.
Oh.
It's both.
Yeah.
For sure. It's always what's
Do you want to talk about Chris?
Yeah, I'll talk about Christy. So Director of Finance is a very, like, even more straightforward role than Jen is in that it's like very clear set of responsibilities, spreadsheets, budgets, paperwork, approving funding, sending out forms. It's also only for, you don't necessarily have to be an accounting major, but you have to have taken some accounting classes. And it's not an elected position, it's an appointed position. So Christy and I do the interviews and we just pick. And that's because it's a technical position. It's not a political position. So, well, it's not apolitical. It still sits on the board and has to do that, but it doesn't have like outside responsibilities beyond just making the budget, which is a huge deal. The budget is very large. And then making sure that is kept up to date and all funds are handled appropriately.
Yeah. Sweet. And then this one and then the one after are also going to be appointed instead of elected. So there's 3 that are appointed and 5 that are elected. Colin?
Yeah, I know you.
What are you listening to?
I have no clue.
Why were you getting married? That's
Junior
the
high
question.
flag football, and then I got married in high school. Not gonna say anything more on that one. Yeah, so I'm Colin. I'm Director of Activities and Marketing. Where do I start? My position's fun. It's essentially, or it sounds pretty simple, and it is, but there's a lot of different pieces to it at the same time. So it's a fun piece. The first one, planning, marketing, and setup of all the school-wide events. So my position, along with CAB, which I think, yeah, I'll talk about that in a second, plans all the activities on campus. And then the other piece, marketing that, is anything from like making posters, running a little marketing team that's like photo, video, Instagram, design, different things like that. So any way you can think to market it, that's part of planning the event. And overseeing the campus activities board and the weekly meetings. The campus activities board is CAB, and they're the team underneath me that this position runs. That helps with setup and all the planning. Julia's actually on that with me right now. So it's a fun time. You have weekly meetings, and then you get to go to the events for free if they cost, and be a part of creating all that fun. And then just kind of working with all the other ASB directors. That's just like the weekly meetings. Going to those, being on subcommittees, voting, discussing anything you could think about those. So that's also kind of one of the most fun parts of the position, is just getting to be a part of that and seeing that. A couple other things that just kind of go along with this position that are important. With the planning and marketing, a lot of the planning that I didn't really think or know about before I started this position is a ton of emails, a ton of phone calls. You'll probably be in your office a lot, just talking to different people on campus in like facilities or reserving spaces, Sodexo. So it's cool because you get to see kind of every single part of the campus and how it all works, and meet like all the department directors or people that work in them. So that's pretty fun. And then this position is also interviewed and selected by Scott and me, I guess, this year. So you don't have to give a speech or really campaign at all, which is kind of nice. It's that time. So that's my position. Right. So I'm Ron Blocko.
Tai Chi.
Just me picking a day on that. So I'm Ron Blocko. I'm the director of school spirit. So essentially, I'm the liaison between athletics and the student body. So essentially, I just meet with athletics, and I kind of am responsible for creating all the hype behind the athletic events, kind of like meet with them and talk about which ones we want students at, because unfortunately at our school, not every student wants to come to every single game.
So trying to create all the hype for homecoming, stuff like that. I help with Emily and playing homecoming, and also doing all the halftime games. And then I also lead the hooligans, which Chris part of. Those kind of just crazy cheerleader boys and girls, just trying to create the hype around campus. And then I promote athletics events and plan halftime shows, as I said earlier. But I'd say the coolest part is being able to meet with athletics. They're amazing people, and they kind of give you the direction. So my position is appointed, but it's also kind of one of those free flowing. There's not a ton of directions, so you can take it however you want. So it's not just athletics. It's you're working with also SALT to bridge the gap between student athletes and students. But you can also we help out with campus TV sport and Colin with the events and stuff like that. But you can also wide range spread, because there's so many aspects of student life you can put school spirit into. So yeah.
Sweet.
Brian's also done a lot this year in our current environment to find other ways to get the hooligans engaged, and so that's something this position has always been geared towards. It was yeah, they're going to do athletic stuff, but there's opportunities to have other things on campus. Where else can we do that? And I just want to point out, I think there's an opportunity now that we've done some of that during COVID. That next year, if you're in this position, there could be even broader opportunity to not just focus on athletics here. Because
Sweet. So the few requirements that are needed, there's few, but they're great. The first one is just a GPA of all your years here of a 2.75 or higher. And then whatever this semester is a 3.0. And then trying to keep those GPAs while you're also on the board of directors. A good thing to note that I didn't write in here is that if you're planning on being a board of directors, you must have 12 units both semesters, 12 or more. You have to be a full-time student in order to hold the position.
Why is that?
Because you're representing the full-time students.
The associated student body is all full-time undergraduate students at UNU, so you can't be on the board if you're not an actual member of the ASB. You're not full-time. Yeah.
And then, like Scott said earlier, there's an academic requirement for finance, and then also an experience requirement for activities. Those go more in depth, and we'll talk about them a little bit later when we get to some other things. And then, like I said earlier, rising sophomores, so freshmen now, they can only run for executive secretary. And then lastly, if you're interested in spiritual life, you must email chapel@healingu.edu or pointloma.edu to meet with Esteban and Mary prior to declaration, which we'll get into those dates soon. But that's a really important step. If you don't meet that step, you won't be able to declare for that position.
If you are interested in this, email this tonight.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, as soon as you know, the sooner you can do that, because they're going to have to schedule you that meeting time. The sooner you can do that, the more likely you're going to get that meeting in. Because if you can't get that meeting in, you can't run for the position.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to talk about some further dates before we get to the closer dates, just because we're just going to get them out of the way really quick. So we have the Nigerian Student Leadership Conference, which I'm super jealous that you guys get to attend, because sadly our board did not get to attend because of COVID. But with that happening, that will happen sometime in May. And we're not really sure what it looks like yet, if that's a day thing, a weekend thing, a 2-hour thing. But
I'm meeting with my counterparts on that tomorrow virtually. It almost certainly will be a virtual event. It will. I know it sounds like a bummer. It's better than what you guys got. You guys need to get that. But it is a really cool opportunity. It's all the other Nazarene schools in the country also sent their new incoming student government officers usually to one of the schools to host a 3-day leadership conference to meet them, connect with them. But I still want our incoming board to get a chance to at least meet those other people and at least build a relationship. So we're not trying to make a massive virtual program or conference, but at least get you a chance to connect with those individuals and hear about what's going on in their campuses.
Yep. And then you're also probably going to be doing a board of director training once you get the job with student leadership and outdoor recreation. Is that what that stands for? Yes. Okay.
Nailed it.
And then meeting with career services. So this is something that we're really encouraging this year for those who get board of directors. If you don't know, the Office of Strength and Vocation is now Career Services. They changed their name because they now fall under a new department. So the kind of goal is to meet with them and kind of see how your job in ASB can kind of roll over to your future career outside of Point Loma. That way you're kind of getting started on the right foot. Also, some responsibilities over the summer. If you get president, finance, or activities, you can work up to 20 hours per week during the summer, and you will need all 20 hours. So
and you should be local.
Yes.
You should not be trying to do that remote.
Yes, I missed that first word, local. And then all the other positions, you guys will be doing about 5 hours of work per week maximum remotely. You don't have to be down in San Diego. But if you are, it's always nice to be here. And then, yeah, during the summer, you're usually going to have like weekly or bi-weekly meetings too. So that's why that's in there.
And you really, like, if you are planning on like going out in the boonies of Australia or the like Boundary Waters and being like a rafting guide or something where you like meetings, I'm sorry, you probably shouldn't be running for the position.
Yes.
But seriously, like those summer meetings are critical for everybody to get on the same page a lot, but they have to in those little bit of hours.
And then some future dates that could change, but this is what we have right now, is returning back to campus August 20th, so a little bit earlier. It's about when RAs come back for welcome back, retreat, and then you're going to go straight into prep, lead, and NSO. So a crazy week before school starts. And then you'll also be doing weekly meetings each week during the school year. Those range usually from an hour to 2 hours. Sometimes they can go over. And then you're also required to do 4 hours of office hours per week. So sit in your office for 4 hours, and you can spread those out throughout the week. And then the average work amount is about 20 hours per week, but let me tell you, depending on the season, that will fluctuate. Some weeks you're going to be working way more than 20, and some weeks you'll be working 5. So just depends on the season you're in for your position. I know I have crazy seasons. Colin's probably in a crazy season right now. So we all go through it. But yeah, about 20 hours per week.
This has fluctuated a lot this last year because of COVID, but the standard is Monday nights. So the same time the RA meetings are happening, the board's meeting. So that's critical because as you're planning your semester next semester, you should not be taking classes that are Monday nights if you could at all help it. We did it. The first time that happened actually was last spring for Jackson. Anyway, but that's like, that's Monday nights. Plan on that. That's really important. Did you say they're paid? Did you remind them?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is paid outside. This is additional. Like you get hourly paid for this work in the summer.
Very nice. Yeah, I would definitely suggest trying to keep away from Monday night classes because you're going to be stuck with 6 a.m. meetings on Thursday morning.
Yes.
Which is why we're doing this
next week.
Semester.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So some earlier dates that are really important to keep in mind, and if you want to, I would highly, highly, highly suggest take a picture of this, write it down, write it in your memory. I don't know. All of these are pretty much mandatory. So first one, leadership training with AJ. That's going to be the first thing that's coming up for you guys. So before you can declare, if you want to declare, you must go to one of these 2 leadership meetings. So they're pretty much just AJ is going to walk you through and kind of do some leadership training with you. I found it really valuable when I did it. I think the rest of us can attest to that as well. So as of right now, Monday's virtual and Tuesday's in person, but we're trying to get the ARC for both. So if you're looking for updates, the best place to go is the website. Everything's updated all the time on there. So in order to go to the declaration meeting on April 6th, you must do one of those meetings. If you can't go, talk to me. We'll figure out something, but it's really, really important that if you don't have a class during that time, you're there. So declaration meeting is April 6th at 6:30 p.m. in this room again. So that will be the fun day where we get to, well, not me, you guys, we'll get to write your names on pieces of paper for what you're voting or running for. Big celebration, and then we'll give you lots more information. And then the day after, there's some website stuff due, which we'll go into. That's not mandatory, totally optional. And then we have campaign week and interviews. So that's going to be Monday, April 12th through election chapel, which is going to be April 19th. So during that time, we're going to have both campaigning going on and then also the interviews for those 3 appointed positions. And then something new we're adding in this year, which we'll go into more detail at the declaration meeting, is election forum. So this is going to be a place where you get to come. I'll probably be the one asking you some questions. You'll be able to talk about them. There'll be students there that can listen, either in person or virtually. And this is just a place for you to get your platform out. Because I know one of the hardest things for me during campaigning was getting out why I was doing it. And that 90 seconds or honestly 45 seconds during election chapel isn't enough time to do that. So that's just one more space for you guys to campaign, because campaigning is going to look so different this year with COVID. So that is one spot for you guys to campaign this year. With that, so some more things between now and declaration. Spiritual life, get your meeting with spiritual development ASAP. If you're applied position, start working on your resume, bring that in to declaration. Your resume needs to be there that night. And then everyone needs to sign up for leadership training with AJ. So I'll have my computer open after this and you guys can come in and type your name. And then also, if you're interested on putting yourself on the website, this is another great campaign strategy that we're trying to set up for you guys. All I'm going to need, and I'm going to need it emailed to me and then Lauren Bothy. So it's going to be just a short paragraph of 120 words max. Your name, your grade, your major, what else? A picture of yourself. And then if you want to, we're kind of using LinkedIn as our campaign platform this year as well. So that's the only external link we'll be linking to. We won't be linking to Instagram pages or websites or anything like that. So if you guys want to use LinkedIn as a campaign platform, feel free to send that to me as well. And it will look like this on the website.
And your LinkedIn doesn't have to be like, if you want to make one that's just for campaigning, you can do that. Or if you want to use your professional one that you already have. Or if you don't have one, then honestly, then I think it's through Handshake. If you're on Handshake, the Office of Strengths and Vocations made some really quality videos on great tips for how to set up.
Yes. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. If there's anything you need through this entire process, the first place you want to check is the website. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up really quick for you guys because I should have done that beforehand when I could see. Yeah. PLNUASB.com. And then you're going to go all the way to the end. And then you're going to go to elections. This whole platform's for anyone who's interested, anyone who's not interested, it's here. First thing you're going to see is the calendar. So if you forgot any of those important dates I mentioned, they are here for you. And then here, if you want to learn more about the positions, you want to meet with the position, go ahead and click this. It will take you to all of our beautiful faces. Click on someone's face and it will take you to information about them, their handbooks in there, their office hours, their email, not their phone number, but their office hours and email. Live stream, if for some reason you are locked down and you're in quarantine and you need to live stream in, all the live streams are there. And then lastly, which I think is the most important for you guys to know, is the rules, info, and paperwork. This one's our newest page that we just put up last night. But here is going to be a link to the Info Night packet. So usually we have a nice big packet for you guys to go through. And we're just going paperless this year because it's so much easier to just throw it up on the website and easier for you to not lose pieces of paper. So all the dates, all the emails, anything you need is in here, all the qualifications if you're confused. So if there's any questions, that's a great resource. If you want to look at the slideshow from tonight, that's a great resource right there. If you're interested in spiritual life director, that's the form you need to fill out and make sure you have before going into your meeting with Esteban and Mary. And then if you're just confused on what COVID guidelines are here at PLNU, there they are for you. So does anybody have any questions at all?
On this one, director form, just again, very important to keep in mind, like this isn't just an extra requirement or box to check. This is really something for you to be reflective and take seriously why you would want to be the student that's standing up in front of other students and leading them spiritually. Like that's a serious responsibility. So it's not just something to fill out, like take it seriously. Esteban, you're going to be talking about that with Esteban in your interview, and he's going to be watching for if you actually are taking it seriously. So it matters.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
For this summer, it says you have 20 hours a week. Can you put those 20 hours a week if you live on campus? I know that's like, I don't know.
What do you mean?
I know
Like if you're planning to live on campus, that's awesome. Then you can
use that 20 hours a week to pay for that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, to be housing eligible for summer. Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So those 3 positions are housing eligible for the summer.
Are we also allowed to take classes, and is there a limit on units?
Yeah, that's a great question. The during the school year, I mean, the requirement for these positions is you should have no more than 10 total hours of all outside commitments. And that's not a lot. Okay, I know these are part-time positions, and so that doesn't add up, right? Like, wait, 20 hours but you're also full-time students. And then doing these, like just doing these jobs on top of being full-time students is a lot. So then to try to have a job or something else on top of that can be not possible. But that means like if you're in a serious outside Bible study or small group at your church, if you are on an intramural team and you're doing that thing every week, like really all of your outside things you're committed to should not exceed 10 hours because that's for your own good. You will not be able to perform at the level you want to, and you will be stressed and hate yourself and think you're doing a bad job in a really important role all year if you can do yourself like that. Over the summer, I feel like trying to take a full load over the summer, that might be, again, I think that would be like a lot to do. But if you're doing a full load plus 20 hours a week with this, I would say you would want to do nothing else but that. Mm-hmm. So we haven't ever talked about having a limit in the summer, but like we've had, John Bothy had an internship and then took 1 class and did his 20-hour-week job, and it was a lot for him, but that was like probably max. Yeah. So, yeah.
I did it 9 units and worked full-time and my 5 hours, and just the 5 hours with this was a lot. So I couldn't imagine doing 20 hours and full-time school.
Yeah.
So don't suggest it. Any other questions?
I have questions here. So regarding room and board, if you decide to live off campus, will you be able to use compensation towards tuition or rent for off campus?
It's like a scholarship, so it gets applied towards your bill. Yeah. And this is an odd thing. I don't know why it's this way, but the president gets $75 more each semester.
What?
I don't know that. I'm fighting that.
So why he has to work at Chick-fil-A, I have no idea.
What was the other question?
So we have someone, if I were to be elected for Director of Finance, I have a question about the summer responsibilities. I live in Hawaii and I always return home for the summer. Will I be able to do my responsibilities all remotely?
No. Like there's very possible that we could work out you being able to go home for like a month of summer, maybe in the middle. And I want to say someone did that prior. I think John Bothy actually did also. He wasn't gone for a month. I don't remember.
Jay was gone.
Caleb was gone?
No, Jay. Didn't Jay go back to Minnesota?
Yeah, but Jay wasn't. The thing with finance is there's a safe in your office and cash in the safe that you're responsible for counting, and things are going in and out of that. Like there's things in your office you physically have to be able to do. And so that's not all the time. Like we could figure out if you want to go home for like a month, that's probably possible. You'd still be needing to work during that time that you're away, work remotely. But like probably the first month of summer, for sure you need to be here. Like we've got to be meeting, we're getting the budget framework set up, and then there's a bunch of reconciliation that's happened. They're going to the cashier's office. Like it's meeting with finance people. yeah, you would not be able to do the entire thing remotely. I would say 1 month max, we could figure out how to make that work.
And another question is, for all the board members, what would you have wished you knew before you took on your roles?
What do you wish you would have known before you took on the roles? Basically, what did I miss in the info meeting last year?
Website.
Yeah, you all wish you would have known that we were about to experience a pandemic.
That would have been nice. You guys have anything?
I would say that while sorry, did you want to go?
You go ahead.
I would say that while you were super dedicated to the role, the people in which you were leading may not be as dedicated to their role. And that is a real growing experience for you. And so it's just learning to communicate well. That's what I would.
Right, guy?
I mean, I would echo that, but also that I would have to do stuff for the website, like content, because I would have definitely planned it out a lot more before doing a little hot chocolate video.
You knew that one was coming. I think one thing.
One of the funniest things we've, I mean, because it's so bad.
It's
Still
beyond bad. I have never seen something so atrocious.
I think one thing I would have known is just like how much more there is outside your own personal role. Like it's not just you and then you going to board meetings once a week. It's like your role and then all these subcommittees you're going to be on and the board meetings and the office hours and all these other committees that you're going to be on outside of that. So if that seems like a lot, it does seem like a lot, but I think it's important to note that there's things outside of that that you could be on. So there's a lot.
Yeah, and another important thing to note is that you have to be really flexible. COVID has forced a lot of us to be a bit more flexible than maybe than we're comfortable with, but just to understand that besides the rules that you have in your handbooks and in your in the Constitution, there's also a lot of responsibilities and opportunities to go outside of those. Yeah, and also another note for VP, because I forgot to mention it during my part of the presentation. You will have to be present for lead week, since committee chairs will be required to attend lead week. That's another role you have, is to fill committee seats within your committees. So, yeah.
And to be clear, everyone's required at lead week. In fact, everyone's required before lead week. Where we go on retreat.
Wow, lucky.
They didn't get to go on retreat. Very sad. Well, we are hoping we will have a retreat this year.
We were going on a beach.
Yeah, we did.
We did, that's right.
Yeah.
And axe
And we went axe throwing.
That's true.
Is there any other questions on there?
We do team bonding regularly as well.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Comments, concerns? Yeah. Oh, I swear I heard that. That was so weird.
Does anyone want to speak to like what it's like when you're elected and then all of a sudden there's this thing where you're walking around campus and you can sense that like students are maybe looking at you or treating you different?
Not my role.
Good. Nobody knows. That's awesome.
That's so sad.
There's definitely a way to like people see me in chapter, so and they think that like I'm super put together. So I mean I am. But like when you're in this leadership role, there's like another especially in COVID, like we are huge leaders and we have to live with what we're preaching, regardless of the role. So it's a pressure, but it's really fun.
I think another thing to point out is not to be afraid of who's running. So in your declaration meeting, if you see this really popular person sign up for a role you really want to run for, don't let that dissuade you from running. I was up against a really formidable person, and the election actually went into a runoff. But if any of the roles you're really passionate about, don't be scared of running, and don't let the people who are running dissuade you.
Retweet back.
I think the biggest thing that I can encourage is if you want more information, go to the website. The board of directors are here. Most of them are here, except for 2. Tonight, if you have questions about their position, if you have any questions in general, feel free to ask them. Feel free to ask me. Feel free to ask Scott. We are here. We are your resource for this season, and we want to be able to support you in the best way we can. So we're here for you guys.
It's not uncommon to like run kind of with someone if you've got a friend that you think actually is, after you've seen this tonight, or like, oh, actually I think so-and-so would be great at this. Like, encourage them to come tomorrow and check it out.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming, guys. I appreciate it.